you ever looked at an empty bottle and thought, this is useless? What if I told you it could shape the edges of your dream garden? In today's video, we're diving into real, practical DIY trash garden ideas. Upcycled borders and creative edging that don't just save money but tell a story. This is Mod House DIY, where we turn the forgotten into something unforgettable. Everything's time-stamped, so feel free to skip ahead, pause, or replay what inspires you most. And if something sparks your curiosity, leave a comment. I always read them. If this idea speaks to you, don't just watch, try it. Use what you already have and start small. Your garden doesn't need perfect tools. It just needs you. Maybe to most, I'm just another voice in the scroll. But behind this video is a kitchen table studio and a real dream. Every like, every comment, every sub, it doesn't disappear into a number. It reaches a family trying to build something with meaning. So if this content resonates with you, subscribing isn't just a click. It's a way of saying, I believe in this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to see beyond the screen. Somewhere in a tiny backyard, not far from the clinking of cups on a patio table, nor the quiet patience of seedlings waiting to rise, someone looked at a pile of discarded bottles and didn't see waste. They saw windows. They saw color. They saw a fence that could sing when the sun passed through. The bottle mosaic garden fence is more than a border. It's a painting in motion. It begins with scraps. Colored plastic bottle bottoms, old soda lids, translucent packaging pieces. Cut, cleaned, and arranged into small geometric shapes, they're gently nested into frames. Some metal, some rustic wood, others a mix of both, and secured not with machines but with care. The light does the rest. Morning sun catches red and yellow, casting soft shadows across the grass like stained glass from a forgotten chapel. Midday glints off the greens and blues, reflecting onto the patio, making even the simplest lunch feel sacred. And when the sun begins to fall, golden beams slide through the panels and paint the ground with a patchwork of stories. Each fence panel tells a different tale. One may border a raised vegetable bed where lettuce and bok choy stretch toward the light. Another may be the frame for a view of wildflowers blooming defiantly in the corner of a once empty lot. A third may simply stand alone, a vertical rainbow between you and the neighbors, offering privacy, art, and joy all at once. This project is as forgiving as it is beautiful. No need for precision, only presence. You don't need to be an artist to make it work. The light will take care of the details. What matters is the pause. The willingness to keep a bottle that might have gone to landfill and imagine what it could be. A triangle, perhaps. A circle. A square of cobalt blue that dances when morning hits it just right. Even the imperfections have their place. The visible screws, the slightly cracked edges, the uneven symmetry, they remind us this was made by hand. By someone like you. Someone who chose to frame the sunlight instead of throwing it away. If you sit beside it, you'll notice the silence of the garden deepens. The shadows move slowly. The fence becomes not just a border, but a companion. And maybe, just maybe, tomorrow you'll start saving your bottles too. The sound of an opening soda can usually mark a moment of pause, a backyard lunch, a quiet evening on the porch, or the laughter of friends beneath a pergola. But what happens after the last sip? when the can is crushed underfoot or tossed aside. Here, those cans have found a second life, one that blooms instead of rusts. Along the edge of a modest patio, petals of aluminum now flutter without wind. They were once cans of cola and citrus fizz, grape soda and root beer. Cut carefully by hand, shaped into rounded blades and mounted onto slender rods, they become cheerful metal flowers, each standing upright like a tiny sculpture of joy. Some are painted in bold colors, cherry red, turquoise blue, sunflower yellow, catching sunlight and reflecting it back in warm, playful glints. Others still carry traces of their origins, fragments of logos, bubbly textures, subtle dents that tell of what they were before. There's something magical about the way they line the garden like soldiers of whimsy. Between the rosemary and thyme, beside a sun-warmed lavender pot, they peek out like unexpected guests. They don't wilt, they don't need water, and yet they bring just as much life to the path that guides your morning coffee walk. This isn't just about decoration, it's about shifting the way we see waste. It's about the soft click of scissors through metal, the quiet patience of forming curves from cans, the grounding calm of placing each stem into the earth. It's about adding color not by spending but by seeing. Even the imperfections hold beauty. A slightly bent petal, a scratch that reveals silver underneath, a logo peeking through like a childhood memory, they remind us that beauty need not be new to be real. In gardens like these, where soda cans become daisies and trash becomes treasure, the message is quiet but clear. Joy can be handmade and beauty can bloom from the most unexpected places, if only we take the time to shape it. Some gardens are planned with blueprints. Others simply grow from instinct, a quiet rhythm between hands and leftovers. And this one, pressed gently against a narrow backyard fence, grew not from pots or ceramic, but from tins, the kind that once held peaches, tomatoes, soup, and stories. There's something deeply grounding about this wall. It stands not to impress, but to support. Each can, some polished, some chipped, some bearing the faded memory of supermarket shelves, now cradles new life. Basil spills softly from one. Mint curls with delight from another. Marigolds beam like little suns from painted metal that once carried nutrition, now nurturing color. The tins are held together with nothing fancy, just wire, wood, and patience. Some are painted in the kind of colors you'd expect to see in an old summer kitchen. Dusty blue, milk cream white, soft apricot, while others remain raw, letting the rust write its own poem. And yet there's no chaos here. The patchwork is deliberate. A vertical patch of soil. A ladder of green. A rhythm in the rows that soothes the eyes and steadies the breath. You don't need space. You don't need a budget. You just need to hold on to what you'd normally throw away, rinse it clean, poke a few holes, fill it with dirt, and wait. Nature will do the rest. Herbs, flowers, lettuce, they don't mind what cradle they're given, so long as there's light, water, and someone willing to pause long enough to tend to them. There's quiet magic in these corners. In the way sun bounces off tin. In the way time reaches over its rim like a child peeking over a fence. In the way the wall breathes, not loudly but like a page turning in a book you love but never rush. This isn't just gardening. It's memory keeping, waste resisting, life making. And when someone asks where you got your garden wall, you can smile and say, it came from last night's dinner and this morning's hope. Sometimes the most beautiful borders are the ones that didn't start out that way. They began as clutter, soda bottles, empty, forgotten, stacked under the sink or rolling in the wind. But here in this humble backyard, they found new purpose, standing tall, proud, and full of color. Each plastic bottle has been turned upside down and half buried into the earth, not just to mark a garden bed, but to celebrate it. Some wear solid coats of red, blue, or yellow. Others shimmer in gradients, oranges fading into greens, purples kissing sky blue, all hand-painted with care, some with brush strokes still visible under the sun. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. About being here, in this patch of garden where joy is not bought, but brushed into being. You don't need a plan. You don't need a fence company. Just a collection of bottles, a bit of paint, and a spare afternoon. Dig a shallow trench, nestle them side by side, and suddenly, your garden has a voice. It says, someone cared enough to make this their own. This project is playful, yes, but it's also practical. The bottles are surprisingly strong once planted. They resist weather, stay upright, and form a cheerful edge that keeps mulch in, shoes out, and vegetables clearly bordered. Even children find wonder in it, tracing their fingers across the colors, asking questions about which bottle used to hold what drink. And maybe, just maybe, the garden grows a little taller near the bottles, not from better soil but from the sense of being loved. Look again at these rows. They aren't just lines in the dirt. They're lines from a story, one you can start writing today. There's a certain hush that arrives with twilight. Not the silence of emptiness, but a softness. A space between the day's doing and the night's resting. It's in that space that these garden lanterns begin to speak. Once they were cans. Soup, tomatoes, beans, lined up on kitchen shelves, then emptied and forgotten. But someone didn't toss them away. They took them outside, cleaned them, pierced them with care, and waited for the sun to fade. Now they glow. Some are raw and rusted, dotted with holes that form constellations across a gravel path. Others wear soft coats of paint, sage, cream, faded rose, with heart-shaped and leaf-shaped patterns hand-drilled into their sides. They sit humbly on stones or along fences, flickering with the flame of a tea light or the quiet pulse of a hidden LED. It doesn't matter what's inside. What matters is the way the light escapes. And escape it does, dancing through tiny punctures, casting stars on the earth, brushing the leaves of hostas and trailing ivy. These aren't just lanterns. They're a reminder that beauty doesn't always begin beautifully. Sometimes it begins with rust, with dents, with an object no one wanted, until someone saw the potential for light. This kind of project doesn't ask for much. A hammer, a nail, a little time. You don't need to measure, only to care. You don't need perfect symmetry, only intention. Because when dusk falls, the garden doesn't judge. It simply receives. A row of tin lanterns can guide the feet of guests, or simply warm the gaze of someone sitting alone with a cup of tea. It doesn't need to shine like a spotlight, just enough to feel like someone lit a candle for the evening, and maybe for you. And when the breeze stirs, the flames flicker and the shadows change. Suddenly, the whole path feels alive, as if whispering, "Thank you for not throwing this away." There's a certain kind of joy that comes from placing your hands into the soil and leaving behind something unexpected. Something not bought, not planned, but made from the cast-offs of everyday life. In the heart of a sunlit backyard garden, a winding path stretches gently between tidy rows of lettuce and glowing clusters of cherry tomatoes. But what catches the eye isn't just the life growing from the earth, it's the colorful mosaics underfoot. Bottle caps, once tossed aside without thought, now find second life embedded in earth and clay. Their weathered colors swirl into spirals, checkerboards, and playful stripes. Some are rusted, some are faded. Some still gleam with bright blues and oranges, resisting time's slow wear. Together, they form a living artwork under the sky, framed in dirt and laughter. Closer to the marigold bed, the bottle caps stand tighter, flatter, cleaner. Reds, greens, and blues press shoulder to shoulder, hugging the curve of a raised flower patch. The terracotta-hued grout warms their edges, lending an almost ancient pottery feel. Except this pottery sings in logos and mismatched typography. It's a reminder that even mass-produced things have texture, story, and rhythm, if only we stop to arrange them by hand. And further down the walk, near a corner where morning dew still clings to leaves, a raised planter box sits quietly, its walls dressed in caps like scales on a garden dragon. Each one tells a story, of a soda shared on a picnic, a party long forgotten, a forgotten stash found in the garage. The caps are chipped and dimpled, imperfect in the most comforting way. A watering can rest beside it, and a pair of worn boots tells us that someone was just here, tending this place with care. This isn't just decoration. It's memory work. It's re-seeing trash not as burden, but as material. As something with color, with rhythm, with potential. Clay and caps, that's all. But it's enough to transform a corner of the garden into a quiet place of delight. Practical tip for dreamers. You don't need perfection. Just collect your caps, plastic or metal, and arrange them tightly in clay or cement-based grout. Start with swirls if you're playful, or straight rows if you want structure. Clay can be hand-kneaded or mixed with sand for better grip. Let the sunlight do the rest. It'll bring out colors you didn't know were still alive. Let your garden grow not just with plants but with stories. And sometimes those stories come with a bottle cap and a little red dust. There's a quiet joy in using what once was trash to bring life and color to our garden paths. The kind of joy that grows slowly, humbly, like lettuce pushing through spring soil or marigolds unfolding under golden morning light. Here, in this humble corner of a backyard, the path is not paved with concrete or stone. Instead, it tells stories of dinners shared, sodas sipped, and memories bottled and tossed away. Now reborn, hundreds of metal bottle caps pressed gently into clay, forming winding mosaics that ripple like playful rivers between rows of tomatoes and peppers. Spirals, checkerboards, and candy-colored lines make each step an act of wonder. Some caps are rusted, others shiny, a blend of old and new that reflects the very nature of a living garden. Imperfect, patchworked, and full of character. To create this mosaic walkway, you don't need expensive tools. Just patience, soft clay or a thin layer of mortar, and a handful of bottle caps you might have thought to discard. The technique is simple, but the result? An edible art path that doubles as a conversation starter. Shift your gaze, and you'll find borders built not from bricks but from the humble cap. Marigolds bloom behind a low ridge of caps set neatly into reddish clay, each one snug, upright, forming a ripple of color and texture. Nearby, raised beds edge against the same bottle caps, creating a rustic visual rhythm between the green of nasturtiums and the faded labels of beer and soda past. This isn't just a garden, it's a living gallery of reuse. When you work with what others throw away, you begin to see beauty differently. And if you've got a few afternoon hours and a bucket of caps, you can build something that lasts seasons, maybe years, out in the open air. Now step further along the fence where something quieter awaits. Glass bottles in deep jewel tones, green, cobalt, amber, dangle from jute rope, swaying gently in the breeze. They aren't singing wind chimes, but they do catch the sun like lanterns, scattering colored shadows over the gravel below. It's a privacy screen, yes, but also a poem. Each bottle spaced just right, creating a rhythm of emptiness and form, light and movement. Behind them, bamboo slats offer a natural backdrop, while lavender, herbs and ornamental grass cluster at their feet. Just a few steps away, clear plastic bottles hang like rain droplets, each cradling a tiny air plant or a dried lavender stalk nestled in smooth sand and pebbles. These upcycled hanging vessels reflect morning light across the patio like water glass prisms, softening the harsh edges of a suburban fence with something handmade and alive. It's all made from what was once forgotten. Soda bottles, wine bottles, takeout plastics. With some twine, hooks, and care, they become vertical gardens, soft dividers, and delicate floating sculptures. These aren't just DIYs, they're declarations. That beauty doesn't need to be bought. That joy can be handcrafted. That trash, in the right hands, becomes the foundation of something deeply meaningful. So if your hands are itching to create, start where you are, with what you have. Let your garden bloom not just with plants, but with your own creativity, stitched together from scraps, memory, and sunlight. In the hush of a quiet backyard, where the warmth of the morning sun glides gently across timber beams and terracotta pots, a string of leaves glistens. But these aren't leaves from any tree. They are born from the hands of someone who saw beauty where others saw waste. Crushed soda cans, faded and forgotten, have been trimmed and coaxed into elegant leaf silhouettes, then strung together like a garland of stories suspended on the breath of the wind. Each piece is different. Some still bear the faint memory of a logo, a curve of a letter, a shimmer of red or green. Others have been repainted in earthy hues, blending with their surroundings, whispering the rhythm of leaves without needing to be real. The artist has etched delicate veins into their surfaces, capturing the essence of nature in a material once destined for the trash bin. The leaves dangle beneath a pergola beam, catching the shifting light in the most magical way. Some edges curl upward as if responding to a breeze, while others hang solemnly, casting long, dappled shadows on the wood posts and potted herbs below. In one frame, grapevines stretch lazily above, a natural canopy lending shade to the handmade sculpture. In another frame, the garland dances just slightly in the breeze, and behind it, the world feels still. A clay planter brims with pink petunias, their soft petals echoing the gentleness of the metal leaves. A bench waits patiently below, inviting someone to sit, to admire, to imagine what other forgotten things could be reborn with just a bit of care. And in the third, a closer look. The craftsmanship is clearer here. You see the texture, the fine cuts, the embossed veins, the stitches and folds that turn aluminum waste into art. The twine that holds the garland isn't perfect, and it doesn't need to be. It is the kind of imperfection that feels alive, a reminder that handmade things have a pulse of their own. This project isn't just decor. It's a philosophy that creativity can bloom from refuse, that a garden doesn't have to be grand to feel magical, and that sustainability isn't a sacrifice, it's an invitation to reimagine. Practical tips. If you'd like to try this at home, start small. Collect cans in a variety of colors. Rinse them clean and using gloves and strong scissors, cut the metal into leaf shapes. A blunt pen or old ballpoint works surprisingly well for embossing vein patterns. Punch a hole near the base of each leaf and string them on natural twine or jute. Hang your garland in a spot where the light changes, where it can shimmer at sunrise and glow at dusk. Because sometimes, it only takes a string of trash leaves to remind us how full of wonder the world still is. There's something quietly profound in the way a tin can, once destined for the trash, becomes part of a garden's gentle language. No longer echoing the clang of the kitchen or the crinkle of packaging, it now hums with color and purpose. A recycled chorus suspended along wooden walls and bamboo rails. These are the overlooked soup cans, tomato tins, coffee containers, painted by hand, lined in rhythm, and brought together to tell a new kind of story. In this garden, the backdrop is not just a fence, it's a canvas stitched with reused tins. Each one wears its own identity, some soft in pastel silence, others bursting with childlike glee in polka dots, stripes, and smiling daisies. The compositions are simple, yet unexpectedly rich. Color becomes choreography. A wall becomes a gallery. Sunlight adds punctuation. The first corner we see is dressed in hush, lavender, mint, cream, and coral. A grid of cans floats on faded fence boards, like candy-hued buttons pinned to a wooden coat. Ivy drapes nearby and roses peek in from the sides. Even the bistro chair, chipped and leaning, seems to pause for the view. This isn't just decoration, it's a kind of outdoor mindfulness. A soft-spoken patch of beauty where symmetry meets soul. Then comes the celebration. Bold stripes in yellow and blue, spotted petals dancing on white enamel. The bamboo rail becomes a playful parade of upcycled joy. Below, marigolds bloom in bright harmony, their petals catching echoes of the painted dots above. A watering can rest nearby, its metal dulled from use, waiting to nurture the very life this color invites. Every can is imperfect. Every hand-painted line, a decision to notice joy in the throwaway. And finally, in a shaded pocket of the fence, we find something quieter still. Old cans, untouched, unpainted, but not unconsidered, stacked vertically in blues, ochres, and rusty reds. Their dents are stories. Their chipped edges, badges of age. Lavender and thyme soften the base, the herbs leaning toward the metal warmth. There's a silence here that's not empty, it's textured, slow, almost reverent. To build like this, you don't need precision or perfection. You need patience, paint, and a willingness to see charm where others see discard. Drill a few holes, use strong wire or nails, and let your garden wall become a conversation between past and present, waste and wonder. Because when we give trash the dignity of placement and purpose, it stops being trash. It becomes voice. And in gardens like this, even the silence blooms. Would you like the thumbnail prompt and SEO YouTube metadata for this story set next? There's a hush in the garden, not from silence, but from the soft, steady rhythm of water finding its way back into the world. In one quiet corner, past the stepping stones dusted in moss, a humble stream slips from the lip of a plastic bottle once meant for landfill. It flows now into a bed of smooth river stones, nestled inside a shallow ceramic bowl. Above it, a bamboo frame stands like a gate to another pace of life. Slower, simpler, intentional. This isn't a fountain made for grandeur. It's a whisper of resourcefulness. A single bottle, gently cradled by repurposed bamboo and balanced between time-worn garden stones, becomes a meditative centerpiece, the kind that doesn't ask to be noticed but lingers in memory all the same. Its beauty comes not from what it cost, but from what it saved: waste, space, and the hurried clutter of modern life. Building something like this is less about engineering and more about listening. Listening to the curve of the bowl, to the way water prefers to fall, to the way pebbles chime quietly when struck. You don't need expensive pumps or sculpted fixtures. Just a plastic bottle, some garden twine, a few stones collected over time, and a small basin, ceramic, stone, even metal. Set the bottle on its side, support it with bamboo or wood, and let gravity carry the flow. It's not perfection you're after, it's peace. Shift your gaze and a second variation appears. A tiered fountain rising from the gravel like a shrine to second chances. Plastic bottles stacked beneath faux stone shells become the heart of a cascading system. Water trickles down in slow repetition, and above, a bamboo wind chime sways lazily in the breeze. Bonsai trees frame the background, reminding us that scale doesn't dictate serenity. Even a small corner of patio can carry the calm of a mountain spring. And then, the third, the most poetic of all, where bottle and bamboo almost disappear into their surroundings. Set among moss-covered stones and delicate ferns, the fountain looks as though it was always meant to be there. The clear stream is the only sign of its modern origin. No sound competes here. Just the pulse of water, the breath of leaves, and the stillness of presence. This is how beauty begins, not with perfection but with a willingness to see again. What was trashed becomes tranquility. What was tossed becomes treasured. And when we give bottles, and ourselves, the chance to pour gently back into the world, something quiet blooms. So next time you're tempted to throw that bottle away, remember, it might yet hold water. In the quiet corners of a backyard where time feels slower and every bloom matters, something remarkable is happening, not with store-bought stone or polished wood, but with things most people throw away. An empty bottle, a cracked piece of bamboo, an old garden idea waiting to be revived. This is where creativity meets kindness. And out of that blend, a garden story begins. Along one sun-dappled path, a low wall rises, not imposing, not sharp-edged, but soft in its intention. Bamboo, naturally split and weathered, cradles rows of colored bottles like puzzle pieces of past seasons. The green glass and deep amber tones shimmer under the leaves of a backyard tree, catching dappled light like water ripples at dawn. These aren't just reused bottles. They're memories in disguise, each one saved, cleaned, and gently placed to form a woven rhythm between nature and reuse. A simple watering can rest nearby as if to say, this garden thrives not despite its scraps, but because of them. Further down the path, the story shifts again. Here, the same bamboo is joined by plastic bottles turned upside down. Their base is now home to tiny succulents. The muted tones of sand-dusted paint blend easily into the garden's earthy palette, while lavender and sage lean into the sunlight like old friends. Each cap-turned planter stands upright in a quiet army of color and resilience, hugged by smooth gravel and softly defined by shade. They were once landfill-bound, now rooted in purpose, offering a lesson in patience and possibility. Then comes a brighter turn, a pop of color where plastic bottles dance with dye. Red, green, blue, each bottle filled with water like a captured sky or sunset, and placed between worn bamboo cylinders that stand like sentinels of soil. Behind them, kale and romaine flourish in raised beds, vibrant and hopeful. This playful border doesn't just keep things in, it welcomes joy in. Says, we made this from nothing much, and look how alive it is. And that's the quiet truth of this garden. It isn't built from expense or perfection. It's built from looking again at what we waste, at what we hide, and at what we could transform. With a handful of tools, a few afternoons, and a willingness to see beauty in the broken, anyone could do the same. This isn't a display. It's an invitation. Step closer and listen. The border doesn't speak loudly, but it speaks true. Even what's tossed aside can bloom again, if given a little time, a bit of care, and a place to belong. There's something magical about watching life bloom from what the world has discarded. In a quiet backyard, beneath the filtered light of an ordinary afternoon, beauty sprouts not from store-bought decor, but from hands that saw potential in what others walked past. Here, a garden has grown, not just in soil but in spirit. Let your gaze wander to the bottle border wall, where bamboo and glass meet like old friends. It's a soft-spoken structure, built from wine bottles once empty during dinner conversations and bamboo poles worn by sun and time. Each bottle is laid with intention, its emerald and amber tones catching slivers of light beneath a shaded tree. The pattern may not be perfect, but it hums with charm, the kind that tells stories, not just lines a path. Nearby, a watering can waits like a character between chapters. Walk further and you'll meet a second edge, not cold cement or polished brick, but a gentle line of bamboo and upright plastic bottles. They stand like quiet sentinels along a pea gravel path, filled not only with soil but with succulence and promise. Some bottles have taken on earthy hues, weathered and softened by sun. Lavender nods in the breeze beside them, releasing its perfume into the air as bees drift lazily past. This is a border, yes, but also a miniature monument to patience and reuse. And then, in the vegetable bed, the border dances. Bottles filled with colored water shimmer between stalks of kale and rows of lettuce. Blue, green, red, they don't just support the garden, they celebrate it. Interwoven with natural bamboo segments, the whole border becomes a ribbon of rhythm and color, marking the threshold where creativity meets cultivation. Who knew a recycled bottle could carry the weight of both beauty and utility? These bottle-bordered ideas don't need perfection to work. They need time, hands willing to try, and a new way of seeing, one that doesn't measure value by price tags or polish but by intention. With just a handful of bottles, some garden twine, and the will to give something a second life, anyone can transform a patch of dirt into a place that sings with color and care. So the next time you empty a bottle, don't throw it away. Hold it up to the light. Imagine where it might go. A wall, a border, a garden of blooms. It's not just trash, it's a seed waiting for your hands. Sometimes, the most unexpected materials offer the gentlest forms of peace. These borders of glass and plastic bottles, once tossed aside after parties, dinners, and ordinary days, now cradle a garden with dignity and grace. No longer discarded, they catch the light and whisper stories of transformation beneath a sky that mirrors their color. In this little corner of calm, upside-down bottles form the edge of a raised herb bed, where rosemary reaches upward like a green firework and thyme spills gently over the soil like soft moss. The glass, some cobalt, some seafoam, others clear as dew, creates a quiet rhythm, turning the humble path into something that feels like a shoreline. It's not just functional, it's emotional. There's beauty in the repetition, in the waves of color echoing the movement of the wind, the growth of the plants, the passing of the day. You don't need perfection to try this. Bottles don't have to match. In fact, it's better when they don't. Use what you have. Rinse them clean. Flip them upside down. Set them close together into damp soil like a puzzle meant only for your eyes. That slight lean in one bottle? It becomes part of the story. That bubble trapped in glass? A memory of soda, laughter, and summer. Elsewhere in the garden, another variation emerges. Horizontally laid bottles press against the soil, half buried, creating a scalloped edge that dances in ombre, from pale turquoise to the deep calm of navy. Succulents nestle up against the edges, their thick leaves glossy against the matte, muted texture of reused plastic. In between, soft thrift flowers sway, their pink blooms offering a splash of contrast like seashells against sand. Driftwood pieces lie nearby, placed gently but intentionally, turning trash into poetry. And then there's the row that feels like tide meeting earth. Glass and painted bottles pressed upright in a neat line, surrounding a bed of daisies and lavender. Their soft sea glass hues glint as the sun lowers. There is no cost here beyond time and intention. No need for buying borders at a store. Only the patience to collect, to arrange, to care. The result? A garden that feels deeply personal. A path that frames not only plants but pride. So often we think gardens grow from seeds alone. But sometimes they grow from the things we choose not to throw away. Let this be your permission to gather, to create, to begin. There's something profoundly poetic about watching rust bloom beside petals. In the quiet corners of a patio or under the golden hush of morning light, beauty doesn't shout, it leans in softly. It's in the clang of an old food tin, once discarded, now swaying gently in the breeze with chains that once held up fences or bikes. What was scrap is now sculpture, and what was bound for the bin finds a second life. Vibrant, floral, and full of joy. Here the garden doesn't sprawl, it climbs. Old tin cans, weathered and chipped, are stacked and strung like wind chimes of color. Some are left raw, their rust patchwork telling stories of meals long gone. Others are painted in faded tones, mint, peach, blush, as if dipped in old sunlight. Each one cradles a burst of life. Petunias spill over the rims like laughter, zinnias stand proud and bright, and trailing vines dance between the chains like green ribbons in motion. The structure is simple. A vertical line of life, cans bolted or wired together, linked by salvaged metal chains or rods. You don't need anything new, just an afternoon, a drill, a couple of screws, and a sense of wonder. Drill small holes for drainage. Fill the base with pebbles. Add soil, seeds or starter blooms and wait. Let the sun and rain take it from there. Look closely and you'll notice how the imperfections give it soul. The rust on the cans doesn't hide beneath paint. It's embraced, celebrated even. Droplets of water glisten on the petals after a light watering. Near one tower, a rattan chair holds a garden book, as if inviting you to sit, rest, and witness how quietly brilliant reuse can be. In another setup, a clay bird perches beside the blooming tower, watching over sweet alyssum and calendula in pastel peach and teal tints. This is not just garden decor. It's a reimagining. It's proof that the smallest garden corner, the tiniest fence post, can become a vertical canvas of rebirth. So if you ever find yourself holding an old soup can, don't toss it. Hold it up to the light. Imagine where it might hang, what it might cradle. Let it carry color. Let it catch the wind. Let it grow. Because in this kind of garden, trash doesn't disappear, it blooms. There's something deeply grounding in reshaping the things we throw away into forms that last, not as clutter but as guardians of our gardens. This border of horizontal, half-cut bottles doesn't just keep soil in, it keeps purpose alive. Here in this backyard, each bottle tells a story of a drink once shared, a gathering once enjoyed, now reborn into a living edge. Some are green, some clear, all trimmed and placed with care, laid into the earth like pieces of a larger intention. The bottles, halved and packed gently into the soil, form a ripple, a soft retaining wall that rises only inches high, but carries the weight of reinvention. Their open mouths face outward, catching sunlight and shadow, while behind them, lettuce leaves open like slow fans and spring onions lift slender arms skyward. Elsewhere, where flowers bloom like laughter from the earth, the same technique curves in a perfect scallop. Weathered labels cling to some bottles, faded blues, reds, and greens like echoes of supermarket shelves long past. Inside the circle, begonias and coleus dance in the breeze, each leaf brighter for being framed by these unlikely vessels. The soil is dark and rich, the mulch sprinkled with fallen leaves, and just beyond, a pair of gloves and a trowel rest on the ground, quiet evidence of hands that choose to create instead of discard. Then comes the curve where gravel meets greenery. This time, the bottles aren't just edges. They're containers, each open side filled with soft, round pebbles. Cream, beige, brown, the colors of riverbanks and forgotten driveways. They catch the morning sun like tiny windows, each a reflection of resourcefulness. The path they line is smooth and dry, leading toward raised herb beds where rosemary and basil swell with fragrance. It's a quiet transition, gravel giving way to greenery, plastic becoming stone. The beauty of this border is in its humility. It doesn't scream its presence. It simply holds the line between soil and path, trash and transformation. And it invites anyone watching to imagine their own line of bottles, their own afternoon spent trimming, filling, and planting. You don't need anything more than what's already around you. Old soda bottles, a sharp pair of scissors, some soil, maybe stones or mulch, and the will to reimagine. Because sometimes the smallest borders speak the loudest truths. About patience, about reuse, and about how something as simple as a plastic bottle can still find a second life under the sun.